that grounds for lifting or piercing the veil. Okay, so there's either what we call statutory piercing the veil and the piercing the veil at temple, okay, by corpus. Now what I said was, right, the major distinction between whether or not the veil would be lifted or would not be lifted depends on whether it is set up or whether the company is set up to evade an existing liabilities and obligations, or whether it was set up to avoid future or foreseeable liabilities. If it is the former, i.e. setting up the company to avoid existing legal obligations, the veil likely to be lifted. If it's the latter, setting up a company to avoid future or foreseeable liability, veil unlikely to be lifted. And just before we looked at the case Machine versus Syed, what the court said was right. Justice, okay? Simply to do justice, okay? That is not a ground for lifting the veil. And this was also illustrated in a Hong Kong case called Cochrane's Limited versus Delta Resource. Now, what happened in this case was the plaintiff had a judgment against Delta Resource, but the company had no assets. Okay? So judgment was entered in favor of the plaintiff against Delta Resource, but Delta Resource had no assets. Now, as it turned out, Mr. Wong, the second defendant, was the guarantor of Delta Resource and controlled both companies. Now, another company, so he had another company named Polo Resource Limited, which he controlled as well, okay? So he controlled two companies, okay? So he set up two companies. One is called Delta Resource, and the other one is called Polo Resource Limited. And as the facts turn out, he controlled both companies. And Polo Resource, as it turned out, had the assets, or most of the assets. And Delta had no assets. So what the plaintiff wanted to do here was, he wanted to seize and obtain an injunction against assets of Polo Resource Company, the second company, in order to satisfy the judgment right. So the question before the court here was, should the veil of Polo Resources be lifted? Okay, two companies, again, right? Two companies, one has no assets, the other has assets. So can I lift the veil of the company with the assets in order to satisfy the debts and obligations? Now, what the court held here was, right, in determining whether the veil is to be lifted, one must ask the question as to whether the corporate structure is a mere facade concealing the true facts. Okay? One must ask the question, is the corporate structure is a mere facade concealing the true facts? And what the court said was, this is a question of fact. Now, so the legal test is, okay, so according to the court, the legal test is, right, the legal question that you ask is whether the company is a mere facade concealing the true facts. So that's a legal question, okay, a legal test. But whether or not that is in reality so, it is a question of fact. Does that make sense? but then the controversy is, right, very often, that especially in tort claims. Now again, right, what we have is, right, in a typical scenario, you have a parent company, okay? Let's say a parent company in a developed country, like US, Europe, Japan. And then you would have a subsidiary company in a less developed countries, developing countries, involved in, for example, energy or minerals extraction. Now, what if the activities of the subsidiaries then cause injury to victims? Now again, 9 times out of 10, those subsidiaries in developing countries, okay, they would have no assets. So even if those victims succeeded in a judgment against the subsidiary in their home country, that subsidiary would have no money to pay the victims and would simply declare bankrupt or insolvent. So the question often is, right, can the victims, okay, travel 10,000 miles to the parent company in, say, US and Europe and enforce that judgment? Now, this was illustrated in the 1990s, okay, when there were a lot of what we call asbestos claims. Now, what happened was in the 80s and 90s, right, a lot of parent companies in the US and UK, they set up subsidiary companies in developing countries like Africa and Asia to extract asbestos. Now, later on, it was discovered that, right, asbestos causes severe injury to humans' health. Like cancer, for example. And as a result of that, a lot of victims, okay, in the developing countries, then try to sue the companies involved in extracting the asbestos in their home country. Now, in a lot of these cases, yes, they succeeded, but then, as I said, the subsidiary in these developing countries have no assets. So the question then becomes, right, can they actually enforce the judgment against the parent company in, say, the US or the UK? Now, under private international law, okay, under private international law, if a judgment is entered against somebody, it can be enforced even though that person or legal entity is not in that jurisdiction. Okay, the question is, right, can you argue, from the private international perspective, can you argue that the parent company existed in that developing country jurisdiction, okay, in the form of the subsidiary? So in other words, can you say that the subsidiary actually represented that parent company when the judgment was entered against the company in that jurisdiction? Now, if the answer to that question is yes, then the judgment can be enforced against the parent. But if the answer to that question is no, then the judgment cannot be enforced against the parent. So for example, let's say ABC Company UK. Now, can you say ABC Company UK existed, say, in South Africa, in the form of ABC South Africa Company Limited? So the question is, like, are they actually the same company? Is ABC UK and ABC, say, South Africa, are they actually the same entity? Now, legally speaking, no. Okay? Legally speaking, no. Right? Because as we said earlier, right? As was illustrated in China Ocean Shipping versus China Treaty, parent and subsidiary companies are two separate legal entities. And of course the question is, right, again, it goes back to square one. Was it an existing liability or was it a foreseeable liability, right? Now, what courts have done is when it comes to tortious claim, tortious liability, the court, in some cases, have taken a more liberal view to that. Okay, when it comes to tortious claim, right, the court have taken a more liberal view. In other words, they are more likely, depending on the case, right, they are more willing to lift the veil to find the parent or the subsidiary company liable for torts. And this was illustrated in an Australian case called CSR versus Young. Now what happened in this case was, right, it concerns, again, tortious act conducted by a subsidiary company in some other countries. And the question before the court was whether the parent company should be held accountable. Now, what this case illustrated here was, right, the court, in this case it was the Australian High Court, right, they were willing to lift the veil to move towards a tortious responsibility of the complementary bodies. Okay? They were willing, or more willing, to lift the veil to move towards a tortious responsibility of the complementary bodies. So in other words, when it comes to tort claims, the court here have shown that they are more willing to lift the veil of the parent to hold the parent liable for acts committed by the subsidiary. Now, what they said here was, the legal test is, quote, whether the dominant parent in all the circumstances may have been such that the subsidiary was in truth merely a conduct for the parent. In other words, to put it colloquially, right, was the parent so dominant and influential of the subsidiary that they were in fact one legal entity? So in other words, we're looking at whether the parent company was actually in de facto control. Now, what the court said was, right, in determining that, we need to look at a number of factors. Number one, okay, was the parent company controlling the subsidiary on a day-to-day basis? Now, even though that subsidiary was 10,000 miles away, for example, right? Was the parent company, in essence, controlling the majority of the subsidiary's business activities? So basically, was it the parent company in, say, the US or UK? Was it them that made entirely every single decision, even though that company was 10,000 miles away in South Africa, for example? Now, because if you are two separate companies, right? If you're two separate companies, you should have separate boards and separate offices in there, okay? You should have separate boards, separate officers, separate managers. But in the question we are asking is, right, despite having that, is the parent company so dominant that it decided almost everything that the subsidiary was actually doing? Now, for example, okay, one of the best way to argue it, not the only way, the best way to argue this, right? For example, were the employees of the subsidiary constantly reporting to the parent? Were the employees at the subsidiary, despite the fact that they were in theory working for a subsidiary, were they actually constantly reporting their duties to the parent companies 10,000 miles away? Now, what the court said was, right, yes, we look at control, okay? Control or degree of control is important, but that control must extend beyond a typical commercial arrangement. Now, so in other words, what the court says, right? Of course, as a subsidiary, we accept the fact that a subsidiary have to report to the parent. Now, regular reporting by the subsidiary to the parent, okay, that is not conclusive. It doesn't mean that a subsidiary simply reports to the parent. Then we say that the parent is actually in control of the subsidiary. Because that's a commercial arrangement, right? As a subsidiary, for example, annually or twice a year, you would have to report to your parent. So that's a typical commercial arrangement. That by itself is not conclusive evidence that the parent is in actual control of the subsidiary. So again, what the court is saying is, right, it is a question of fact. So in other words, it is so obvious, okay, it is so obvious that without a doubt, the parent is in control of the subsidiary. Now, of course, in reality, okay, this is very difficult to prove. Yes, we know that's a legal test. Yes, but in reality, okay, it is actually very difficult to prove. And also, from a victim's perspective, right? From a victim's perspective, how do you gather evidence to prove that? So it's actually quite rare, okay? It's actually quite rare for these kind of cases to succeed. Because although in theory we can, okay? In theory we can, okay? Both courts in the UK and Australia and other Commonwealth courts, okay, they have said that yes, it can be done, especially, okay, when it comes to holding the parent company liable in tort of the subsidiaries. But can you really do that in reality? Well, you tell me. Right, any questions in relation to what we've done today? Anything about the course? Now, okay, just before we go, okay, this is something that I need to make an announcement on, right? Now, some of you, as I know, okay, have not been able to register on this course because officially, okay, the course is now full, okay? Once the course, okay, once the student number, which is about 145 or something, okay, the computer system will no longer accept any registration. Now, some of you have come to me to sign forms to be enrolled on this course. Now, what we're now doing is, right, for those of you who are officially still not enrolled on this course, okay, especially for JD students, okay, for JD students, is this, right? If you're JD students and if you're officially not enrolled on this course, we will give priorities to those JD students who are in their final year. Okay, so if you are a second-year JD student on a 2-year track, or a third-year JD student on a 3-year track, you would get priority on this course, to register on this course. But if you are not a final year JD student, okay, you will only be able to enroll on this course if there is any space left. Now, because officially, okay,